What are your big influences now? Send out your skulls, everything you got. Your mother, your father, your brother, everybody.
Now, if you've ever walked into an alt clothing store or messed around with a goth chick whose dad beat the dog shit out of her routinely, you're always going to think to yourself after a little while, well, who are these Misfits guys I keep seeing shirts of? Well, it's my job to finally explain to you who the hell these guys are. So let's use this time on Halloween to get into bar none the best horror-themed band. I mean, hell, they have a song called Halloween, so the time is right. The pumpkins are burning bright. Launching the career of famous heavy metal and punk dwarf hairy icon Glenn Danzig, the Wolverine himself, as well as the other famous members like Doyle and Jerry Only, who wishes he was the only member that people talked about. Now, a lot of people accuse punk rock of being samey. All the songs are just constant chord chugging. But the Misfits kind of changed the game completely. They focused more so on memorable lyrics and heavy-ass guitar riffs that some people even consider to be crossover or even metal in some situations. Hell, Metallica can't even go a goddamn minute without covering a Misfits song.
Here in this place lies the genie of death. Is that what it is? I thought it was key to your death. Okay. Genie of death. But see, every time I asked Glenn Danzig for the lyrics, he'd send me something different.
And with most punk bands rebelling against the system with their lyrics, Misfits went in a completely different direction. They were rebelled against Boris Karloff and the semi-retarded Bela Lugosi. They were always talking about classic old horror movies. And when they first started out, Glenn Danzig was the leader of the band, wrote most of the music, and was the driving force, and amazing singer, even as a punk vocalist. But they started out with a really weird sound where they didn't even have a guitar, and it was like piano playing, and it was just complete dog shit. But they quickly realized that every other band in the scene was so much better than them because they, played fucking guitars. So they decided to add that into their sound, and boy, something special was immediately born.
Static Age was, in a lot of ways, pretty groundbreaking. It was something that people didn't, now people get it, but back then nobody understood. We took it to Sire Records, who was doing the Ramones. We took it to Kryst, who was doing Generation X and Blondie, and they didn't get it. And they send this guy down to listen to his practice in my garage, and we're doing Bullet. And the guy goes, oh, well, you shouldn't play it all just 16th notes. You should change it and do this. We say, get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
How lonely it is to be completely ahead of your time. This album is groundbreaking, but no one heard it at the time. This album was actually shelved forever because no label wanted to release it at all. They recorded it, they kicked ass, it's amazing, and no one wanted to release it. It was too weird at the time, it was way too different. So they just shelved the thing for several years until it started to look like a horror movie prop, until they decided to finally release it after a long legal battle with Glenn Danzig. And they tried to repress the damn thing after all this time, and it was so putrefied they had to put it into an oven to get that golden brown look. And then when they finally finished pressing it, it completely fell apart. And we would have lost so many classic songs from them, and many consider this to be their best album if they didn't press this any earlier. We would have lost songs like Hybrid Moments, Last Caress, which is widely considered to be the most classic song. I mean, who doesn't love this song with extremely memorable, edgy lyrics? Pretty much the band's anthem through and through. And then you would have lost a classic Return of the Fly, which is funnily enough based off a really cheesy, shitty sequel to a 50s B horror movie with Vincent Price. It's some of the laziest, goofiest lyrics. So after completely fucking wasting their time on what's considered a best of compilation of all this early material from the band, they decided to let's not waste our time and just release singles instead of entire albums. You got stuff like Bullet, an absolute classic about Kennedy getting assassinated, getting his brains blown back through the back of his fucking head.
Kennedy's shattered head, it's concrete. Right, Johnny, right. Johnny's about to battle and Johnny's about to scare.
And then that pussy piece of shit, Mr. Jim, decided he wanted to leave the band because he thought the horror themes were too over the top. A fucking classic old goofy 50s horror movie, that's over the top for you? Like, what kind of pussy are you, Mr. Jim? Mr. Jim, you little weirdo. So he left the band right after they released the Horror Business EP. I guess he wasn't in the business of horror. And then you had the Beware EP, which was the first time we all heard Last Caress because, you know, Static Age was on the shelf getting static. And then you had the 3 Hits from Hell, which was a little piece of what would become another album shelved from 12 Hits from Hell, but it had my all-time favorite Misfits song on there, the dark, brooding, heavy as hell horror movie London Dungeon.
They call us walking corpses, unholy living dead. They had to lock us up.
So how much more horror movie themed could they get at this point? Well, the next 2 singles were Night of the Living Dead, absolute classic movie by the way, and then literally Halloween, one of their greatest songs. So at this time, you know, they're building all this momentum, all these singles for what has to be an absolute banger of an album to come that once again gets fucking shelved. The 12 Hits from Hell session, once again the same problems of Static Age, and this was supposed to get a full release later down the road just like they did with Static Age, but Jerry and Glenn just can't agree on stupid shit like liner notes. Like, come on, geriatric only. What do we have to wait for this shit to become public domain? And for what the bootlegs showed this album of what it's supposed to sound like and the track listing, this is literally the best synth they've ever done. But pretty much all the best songs from this end up also on the next album, Walk Among Us. But overall, all the songs on here are much better, and hell, you have Where Eagles Dare, which is amazing, and the song Halloween is so awesome that they open and end the album with it, with a little weirder version at the end that has almost Glenn Danzig solo type weird Latin sounding vocals and chanting and, you know, that kind of atmosphere that he would go for in a solo cruise and in Samhain or Samhain. The guitar player Bobby Steele is being a complete cornflake, and they got to get his ass out of here. And they bring in a literal giant grunting demon that they refer to as Doyle. Ironically, has the exact same last name as Jerry only. I wonder why that is.
I used to rehearse with them all the time because, you know, the other guitar players couldn't make it, so I would just rehearse with them. And they were recording an album, and I was there, and the guy never showed up. So they said, just do it, and I did it, and that was it.
He is so gigantic that he big brothers Jerry's ass at this point. But to be honest with you, Doyle, as much as I love my boy Glenn, Doyle is probably my favorite member of the band just because his attitude is absolutely hilarious. He's always trolling everyone, not taking stuff that seriously. If that is even to be believed that he plays guitar, because according to him, he doesn't even know how to play guitar.
Yeah, I only know 2 chords, so.
You know what I know? The same shape.
I know the songs I play.
A lot of his riffs and tone are amazing and instantly recognizable. But then he's literally up there punching the fucking guitar while playing live, so I don't know if he can or not at this point. So with this mostly classic lineup of the Misfits that would redefine the sound of punk, can they finally release an album? Can they take some of these leftover songs from 12 Hits from Hell, and can they finally get something out?
Couldn't find out what we were really about for the first year, and then we came up with the horror image, and we were like, well, look, we're all into horror films. So what happened was that we started with making the horror image, and but it was based upon seeing the uniformity of the Ramones.
This is the defining era of the Misfits. The boys have finally fine-tuned their craft and their direction with the band, with the awesome new guitar riffs and sounds of Doyle. They have more of a harder, more metal edge, but then Glenn just comes in with these great vocals. The gang vocals from the band are excellent too, but the songwriting is still unbelievably catchy and catchier than all the other punk bands in the scene, with songs like Skulls, which are literally mind-blowing. And other classics on here, I Turn Into a Martian with amazing gang vocals, Nike A Go-Go, which is unbelievably catchy to the point of it getting a little annoying, Astro Zombies is classic, Night of the Living Dead, and Vampira, the best song on here, unbelievably heavy and kick-ass and riffy, of course about the old school horror movie goth chick that we were all familiar with. And I'm pretty sure Glenn had a huge hard-on for her, but who didn't, to be honest with ourselves? Who doesn't love goth chicks? Glenn just has good taste. And then you have one of the most aggressive songs that's just bizarre at first and goes extremely heavy. Mommy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight? But it's the live version on this album, and it's the studio version on the next album, Earth AD. For a punk band, the playing on here is actually pretty damn tight, but unfortunately the Misfits go through drummers like Glenn goes through bricks on his front lawn, and they ended up firing Arthur Googly Moogly at McDonald's of all places, which is probably Glenn's favorite restaurant. But they brought in the intense and talented Black Flag drummer Robo in to replace him, who does an amazing job and ups the intensity immediately. However, almost soon after getting him, they all got in trouble when the group of them raided and tried to rob a voodoo priestess's grave.
Yeah, my brother Kenny was with us, and he had all the money, and he got away.
Ooh,
so he came and got us, and we spent the night in jail. When he came to bail us out, he bailed out me, Jerry, and Glenn, and then he looks at Robo over dead serious, and he goes, "I'm sorry, I don't have enough money to get you out."
This album is the heaviest, the fastest, the most aggressive, in-your-face thing the band has ever done. And as fast as they're going, and as short as the songs are, as short as this album is, it is pretty much the Rain and Blood of punk rock. If you thought that album was short, going at 28 minutes, the shortest version of this album is 14 minutes. Sometimes there's little extended tracks as well, or little bonus tracks. But then the longest version of it that actually adds the Die Die My Darling EP to it is only 20 minutes. By the way, great song, Die Die My Darling. That song has a heart monitor featured all throughout it, but it is one of the most classic, memorable songs that has some of Glenn's best singing. Many actually consider this to be one of the first crossover albums, and I can't deny it, with songs like Death Comes Ripping. It's borderline thrash metal. You have the song Devil Lock, which is about their weird hairstyle that they would do at the time, as well as Green Hell, one of the most famous songs, and a song Metallica infamously covered live all the time. Best song, gotta go with the ADHD fueled Barn Burner, the fast as hell and ripping Demonomania, My Mother Was a Whore. What's up with Glenn and his mother, by the way? They did the Evil Live 1 live album, which is considered an absolute classic, and they were just tear-assing live. But things started to fall apart where Glenn was secretly working on material for Samhain, or Samhain, that wanted to be much more darker, more occult themed, even more horror themed than the Misfits were being, and with better musicians. But they also had problems with their drummer at the time, Brain Damage. And this is a very aptly titled name for their drummer, because at the last show that they had, he was so pissed drunk off his stupid ass that they had to have Doyle carry him off stage. But because Glenn was pretty much the sole ruler and dictator of the Misfits, he decided to end it there and work on his other projects like Samhain, or Samhain, and his excellent solo career. Now I will say though, if you're a big fan of this era of the Misfits, you should really listen to Samhain, because dear God, Initium, and especially November Coming Fire, is some of the greatest material out there if you like your aggressive, dark music. But in this interim, they released the Legacy of Brutality compilation, as well as the Collection Series 1 and 2, and for some stupid reason, Glenn makes all these songs sound super thin in certain sections, remixes guitars, re-records stuff, just to screw people that had played on songs out of their royalties like a complete dick. What are you, Sharon Osbourne? Jerry and Doyle just couldn't help themselves. They had to write music together. Allegedly, a coke-fueled session came together for a band called Kryst the Conqueror, which is pretty much power metal about Jesus and the Bible, because Jerry only was becoming a Christian at the time.
After we had broken up in '83, we started, the Necros actually turned us on to Iron Maiden, and we didn't have a singer, so we would like work on riffs. So after about a year of this, we had all these riffs, so we started to put them together as an album. At the time, we were in getting ready to tool up for a legal battle with Danzig to get the name back and keep playing. And, you know, he was just doing all this dark, you know, devil worshiping kind of theme stuff, and we weren't about that, but people didn't know who we were or what we were about, because he was out saying, oh, they're just a bunch of druggies and, you know, a bunch of rich kids doing drugs that were in the bands.
And this stuff is actually very excellent. They got Jeff Scott Soto somehow from the excellent band Yngwie Malmsteen's Rising Force to do vocals on this.
I don't remember how we got him. We listened to him on an Yngwie record, and he sounded cool, so we contacted him somehow, and he said, yeah, I'll do it.
And they only ever released it as an EP. The best song there's got to be Spellbound, which has a guitar solo from someone that you may all know from Skid Row, Dave the Snake. Now this helped them get out of that rut and show that they could actually write songs without Glenn's assistance, and stuff that was actually pretty good. So they're like, you know what? We are the Misfits. Let's fight Glenn Danzig for the rights. They successfully owned the rights to the Misfits after a long legal battle with Glenn, and they actually, out of good faith, invited Glenn to come back and front the band.
We felt that it was in our best interest for the kids to ask Glenn. So we went down, we didn't want to talk to his management, we wanted to talk to him. So we tracked him down and we went to his hotel. And I got somebody in his room on the phone, and Doyle, I've seen what room number it was. Doyle went up and banged on the door, and he had security escort us from the building, so we got kicked out. And we took that as a no.
They brought in Dr. Chud to play drums and got a literal Chud to do the vocals named Michale Graves, beginning a super underrated era of music.
They get the opportunity to audition for this band, and you know, almost a year goes by. So Halloween rolls around, and the Misfits have to come back. They have to make their move at Halloween, or they're going to have to wait an entire year. So Typo Negative offers them an opportunity to come out at the Roseland show in New York City on Halloween night. But they don't have a singer yet. So the band comes up with the idea, well, let's ask Pete Steele to sing the songs. They call Pete Steele, and Pete says, absolutely, I'll do that. But I don't know the songs, he says. Somebody's got to teach me the songs. So those guys call me. I rolled up on Pete Steele maybe like a year or two beforehand and handed him a cassette tape of my band, and you know, if you have a chance, man, maybe you can listen to my band. So there I am at the Typo Negative space, and I'm teaching Pete Steele these songs. And in the middle of all of this, he stops everything. And he says, this is your singer. You guys have to go with this kid. He sings it certainly better than me, and probably anybody better to do it in this room.
I love Glenn Danzig as much as the next guy. He's one of my all-time favorite singers in and out of the Misfits. Hell, I kind of prefer his solo stuff. But this band proved on this album that you don't even need the main songwriter and leading force of the band to release good music, because good music is good music. A little overproduced and a little on the metal side, but ultimately American Psycho and the Michale Graves era as a whole is shockingly excellent. The contrasting styles of Jerry coming in with his kind of doo-wop influence, old school punk music, and Doyle with his heavy-ass metal guitar riffs make some of the strongest material from them. You have stuff like The Shining, which is excellent, the title track, which is borderline thrash metal, and my favorite song on here, The Crimson Ghost, which is actually the logo guy of the band that we see all the time on these t-shirts, as well as based on a old cereal from the 1950s. The original original title for this was supposed to be Dead King's Rise, but they must have really loved our boy Patrick Bateman. They had to return some videotapes. Now, Michale Graves is completely different in almost every way vocally than Glenn Danzig, but excellent, extremely versatile like Glenn was, where he's able to do very high screeches, he's able to do really great low vocals as well, and really just fits every song and every moment that they needed perfectly. Case in point, one of the strongest songs on here, and one of their biggest hits even after Glenn was gone, a very poppy kind of punk song called Dig Up Her Bones, which still has those horror elements in here, but it is so melodic and catchy and strong. People that have clicked off at this video at this point, what kind of moron are you? You won't give the greatest punk album of the 90s a chance? F*** you.
Welcome to the party, honey.
Now, after touring heavily and releasing Evil Live 2 and having Mike Hideous shortly replace Michale Graves, who's actually very talented in his own right, because Michale Graves is a lazy piece of shit, the band decided to recongeal and release Famous Monsters, which is arguably just as damn good as American Psycho, if not better. Non-stop classics on here, again, like Lost in Space, Descending Angel, Scream, one of their all-time classics that had a famous music video. They brought in the director from the Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead series to come in, George Romero, and do a zombie-themed music video where you got Doyle running around as a huge zombie. Now, my favorite song on here, my favorite song in the Michale Graves era, has got to be the slow-paced Saturday Night, a song that's extremely relatable with the lyrics about missing someone that you loved after you killed her. Now I just gotta quickly say, for all the people that want me to go on some sort of like political rant about how Michale Graves is a piece of shit, I mean, yeah, he is a lazy piece of shit, but I guess he has pissed people off politically as well. What do you want me to say, guys? What do you want me to do? Like, Heath is a great singer. He had a great era with the band. It's not going to stop me from listening to this great music. He could go and kill someone and I'll still listen to this stuff. It's not going to stop me from bopping Charles Manson because he's just got banger songs. What are you going to do? You can't stop me. The only thing he could possibly do to suck is if he died, because obviously, how can you be a great singer? How can you make good music anymore when you're dead? You were good then, now you're an idiot because you died, now you suck. Funnily enough though, Famous Monsters actually went to 138 in the Billboard charts. Hey, we are 138. With Michale Graves though, things were falling apart because he was just a prolific, lazy piece of shit and prima donna, complained about everything, would walk off stage all the time and be a complete pussy bitch, and then would just not even show up to important things they needed him for.
He wasn't showing up at practices like he should. We would set up photo shoots. Now you have a photographer coming in to take pictures. Not show up. We went up to Canada to do a music video. Directed by George Romero, okay? Misfits video directed by George Romero, the guy from, who, if you don't know, Night of the Living Dead and all those zombie movies. Michale doesn't show up. We have to have an understudy put on the makeup and walk through the scene really quick. And it looks like Michale, you wouldn't even know the difference. And then finally Michale decides he's going to show up. I mean, it was stuff like that, you know, burns Jerry's ass. It burns my ass too, because I'm working hard. I went out of my way to get George Romero. It wasn't easy.
And then Jerry Only was ironically the only one left and should not have done so. He stupidly continued even without his brother Doyle.
My brother was singing. He hired another guitar player without ever telling me. And it was embarrassing.
Who started to release an amazing solo album at this time and solo career. It has some of the best Misfits backwash, to be honest with you. It's pretty much like Graves era meets Pantera. And then Jerry tried to get like a super group together with Dez Cadena from Black Flag and Marky Ramone from the Ramones, obviously. And how do they show off this great lineup? They're releasing an abysmal covers album called Project 1950. I don't even want to talk about it. It's so bad. You should not waste your time on it. And with all these like weird doo-wop and 50 sounding songs, it just does not gel with the band. It's really corny. It's really cheesy. And to be honest with you, the band went to complete shit when they tried to be quirky and weird like the Ramones.
I like Glenn. I never really disliked Glenn as a person. But, you know, we do have a lot of influence on people. And I won't, for profit or for fame, jeopardize the safety of my fans to make money and to promote something that I don't think is right for them. And, you know, Glenn got into this whole satanic outlook, and I wouldn't throw down on my kids, you know what I mean? And I won't do that. So, I mean, it's, you know, if Glenn wants to go to church, you know, and, you know, repent, I mean, I guess we're good to go.
Okay, boomer.
It's pouring down, it's come for you, the devil's rain. It's pouring down, it's come for...
Around this time, Jerry became extremely holier-than-thou Christian, complaining about Glenn Danzig's lifestyle constantly. Hey, what about thou shalt not judge, dickhead? Anyways, this influenced The Devil's Reign pretty heavily lyrically and thematically. And honestly, the album's actually not even that bad. The music is pretty decent, despite Jerry having mostly bad vocal performances. The worst song is the embarrassing and irritating Cold in Hell. The Mummy's Hand is actually pretty good and has decent vocals from Jerry. But the best songs are the songs that Dez Cadena actually sings, like the badass ripping Jack the Ripper. I don't know why Dez didn't just do all the vocals for this, because they're clearly the better songs. I mean, I get it, it's punk, but sing better, Jerry, you stupid fat idiot. They tried to do a reunion in the early 2000s that Jerry apparently sabotaged. I mean, hell, Doyle even gets along with Glenn better than Jerry does, and Jerry can't even get along with Doyle half the time. What kind of dickhead doesn't even get along with his own brother? And in recent years, the band had finally reunited with its classic lineup, and also Dave Lombardo from Slayer on the drums. They honestly sold better live than Slayer ever did, and he clearly got paid more. But anyways, this reunion, that was excellent live, by the way, only happened because of a lawsuit stipulation that pretty much said, if we agree to this settlement, then we have to reunite and play this many shows live, which is so embarrassing.
This is the only fucking business in the world where a bunch of people can't get along to make millions of dollars. You know? What the fuck is wrong with everybody?
At this time, though, there's no plans for any new albums from the band, which sucks because, honestly, Glenn hasn't released new music in a while. He's usually pretty consistent and good, but he's kind of given up on releasing albums or even movies at this point because they're so bad. And then you have Jerry Only, who released a solo album around this time. The first half of the album is actually kind of okay, and the rest is borderline roller coaster music.
People torn apart as children scream. The carnage brings our darkest dreams.
And then Doyle is just obviously carrying the talent of this band on his shoulders, releasing some kick-ass solo material. But honestly, they can still do it. Glenn's voice is still strong, especially for punk music. And hell, just let Doyle write all the music if you guys are so damn lazy. It'll turn out pretty damn good. They keep saying that they're not going to do any more live shows, and then they keep reuniting to do one-off live shows constantly. Just do an album, you lazy old idiots, and quit wasting our time.
I always wanted to have stuff that lasted and wasn't just here for a year or two. I wanted to write stuff that people would be coming back to 20, 30 years later.
Subscribe to the